Hi, my name is Donny Lowy. I want to share with you what I find to be a very insightful and inspiring idea from this week's Parshat Shemot. We all know the story. We know that the Jewish people were being subjugated to slavery. We know they were going through some very dire tribulations. And we know that there comes a moment in the Parsha where the narrative informs us that God remembered to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. Now, the pasuk tells us that the moans of the Jewish people, the cries of the Jewish people, due to the pain that they're experiencing, due to the slavery, rose, and God heard it, and then God knew that it was time. But what's very interesting is there's another pasuk that actually clarifies, but at the same time creates a tremendous mystery. Look what the pasuk says: Vayar Elohim as Bnei Israel. God saw the children of Israel. So far that makes sense, right? Fits in with the story. But look at the end of the pasuk: Vayeda Elohim, and God knew. So God saw the children of Israel, and God knew. What did God know that God didn't, so to speak, already know before? What trait, what quality did the Jewish people showcase at this point in the narrative that made God realize that, yes, these are still his people? And I want to actually even make it, with your permission, a little more deeper. When do we know that concept of a person in the Torah knowing someone else? We find that concept where? By marriage. Adam knew Chava. You could find it other places as well. So we see that God remembers, sees what the Jewish people are going through, and then God knew. He knew the Jewish people. So what was it that God knew? So let's look at how the Torah describes the challenges that they went through. Let me read you over here. Perfect. ויהי בימים הרבים ההם וימס מלך מצרים ויאנחו בני ישראל מן העבודה ויזעקו ותעל שבasam el Elohim min avodah. And it happened during those many days that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the work, and they cried out. Their outcry because of the work went up to God. So it's very interesting what happens over here. Two things you could see. The Jewish people, no matter what they went through, they still consider themselves Bnei Israel. They still consider themselves part of a unified nation who cared about one and the next person. And how do we even know that? Because when Moshe sees one Jewish person hitting another Jewish person or fighting with another Jewish person, he considers that person the wicked one. In other words, it was an exception. But the rule was Bnei Israel. The Jewish people were one group. And another thing that happens also, they never complain to God about God, right? They're going through a hard time, and their cries are heard to God. And also, look at the word, Shavasam Elohim min avodah, Vatal Shavasam Elohim min avodah, right? And their outcry of their work went up to God. What does that sound like to you? That sounds, if anything, sounds like an olah when you give a sacrifice and it's rising up to God. And what do we know? It's another replacement today for sacrifices. What was even happening before sacrifices? People would pray to God, right? They would cry out to God. So God saw at the end of the day, the Jewish people still maintained themselves as having a very strong connection and relationship with God, and that is what God knew. So I want to give you and your family and everyone in your life a bracha that you should always remember the special relationship that you have with God, that God has with you. And remember, whatever you're going through, as the pasuk says, Vayar Elohim es Bnei Israel vayeda Elohim. God saw the children of Israel, and God knew. God knows what you're going through. God knows what you need in life. And I hope that God gives you and your family and your friends and everyone that you know everything they need.